Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chad Calek, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for episode number 32. Which on this episode, we're going to talk about groupies, the unsung heroes of rock and roll. And the reason we're going to talk about groupies is because I received a couple questions asking me for the dirt, a la Motley Crue, on my old band when I was in 35-inch Mutter, if we had any crazy stories like the Crew did. And I also got asked, what is my all-time favorite biopic rock and roll type of movie? Which that is Almost Famous, and I'll explain why in a second. First off, if you don't know, I was in a band called 35-inch Mutter back in between 1996 and 2002. We experienced moderate success. We had a top 10 radio single at metal and hard rock radio called Full Scale War, in which I was fortunate enough to go on tour with everybody from the Deftones, Limp Bizkit, Stained, Incubus, System of a Down, you name it. Motley Crue, as you guys know, we played with everybody. We played with the metal version of Vanilla Ice, which, by the way, it was a banging show too. So I had some success. I never had success like Motley Crue. I mean, that's insane success. They played for crowds in excess of 100,000 people in different locations around the world. The largest crowd I ever played for was in Apple River, Wisconsin, which was 32,000, which, trust me, that was pretty amazing. When you look out and you can't even see the ground. I mean, that's a crazy show. So I definitely had moderate success. Regionally, we were the top-selling act for about 2 years, between 99 and 2000. We were definitely treated like rock royalty for a couple years. We played a bunch of shows with Slipknot, and we had a big war with them, which is well documented in the Clown Show of Destiny documentary, which will be coming out in the next couple years. So yes, there were a lot of dirt stories, but I'm not going to go on a podcast and start talking about my sexual escapades and crazy things. If the guys in Motley Crue want to do that, that's fine, but I have a daughter out there in the world. All I will say is that whenever you experience any kind of level of fandom, stardom, whether it be local, regional, national, you're going to be presented with opportunities that you aren't otherwise presented with. And when you're 18, 19 years old, of course, women are shit, number one. That's what you think of first. But the reason I bring up the groupies and call them the unsung heroes of rock and roll is that I think groupies have just gotten such a bad rap, and I think they've been improperly represented in films, especially because, of course, look, all the sexual stuff is great when you're a young kid, because these are the girls that'll say yes, right? These are the girls that'll do whatever you want, and they know the score. They know what's up, and I always felt like it was an on-the-table deal. Like they want to be a part of the band, they want to be backstage, they want to hang out and do all that. In return, they make, an unspoken deal with you. But what was interesting to me when I started watching rock biopics is just seeing just how horribly these women were always portrayed in movies. And I thought Almost Famous was the first movie that actually portrayed, quote, groupies as I saw them. I never looked at any of these girls as, trash or horrible people or anything like that. I understand that it's fascinating to go watch somebody do something that you're into. I've gone to concerts and watched dudes blow my mind. And like I said before, I wish I was Tommy Lee at that Dr. Feelgood concert. I really did. For a few seconds, it's the only time in my life where I was like, man, I want to be him right now. And I just flip it around. If I was a female and I looked up and saw that, I would find everything in the world attractive about it. The same way that it is a male without the sexual, connotation to it. So I never looked at groupies as anything horrible because, sexuality was part of the equation. And I think there's a difference between a one-night stand and a groupie. A groupie, I always thought, was like more of a positive thing in the sense that they want to help. Like, they don't just want to be a sexual toy and then thrown away. Like, they want to support the band. And in a million cases, if it weren't for the support of these, quote, groupies, these bands would never get off the ground. I know for a fact, when we were first starting and we were asked to go on tour, a lot of times the opener is getting $50 or nothing. Zero. And it's up to you. You got to figure out how to get city to city to play those shows. And you pray to God that you sell merch. You pray to God that there's enough people in the room when you go on to like your band, to like your music, that they want to buy 2 or 3 t-shirts, because that's enough for gas, and that's enough to split a loaf of bread and some peanut butter. Like, that's how bad it gets when you're an opening act on the road. And what was awesome is we would develop relationships in different cities with these women who would absolutely take care of us. And I don't mean just in a party way. I mean, they would make sure that we had a bed, we had a hot meal, we had transportation if we needed to go anywhere. And the trade-off was that they would be backstage at the show and they'd be hanging with us. And over the course of time, you develop really strong friendships and strong relationships with these women. And it was so important. It was such an integral part of making it. And whenever you go through that struggle, when you're fighting so hard to make it and you start to make it, you know who helped you and you know the ways that they helped you. And you develop really strong friendships with these women. There's a couple girls today that I'm still friends with that started out in that, quote, I guess, category, groupie, you could call it. And, now they're married and they're lovely women and they have children, and it was a different part of their life. But they were there to support and to help. And, because they believed in it. And that feels awesome when somebody believes in you. In the book, The Dirt, Motley Crue talks about this a lot. They talk about how if it wasn't for the women on the Sunset Strip, they don't know where they would be. And I totally understand where they're coming from with that angle. I could tell you one story. There was a show that I was going to make it to. It was we were opening up for Stained. And my car broke down 22 miles away from the venue. And my car was a junker. It wasn't anything great. And I was freaking out because I wanted to play with Stained so bad. Oh my God, I was freaking out. I was like, Aaron Lewis, this is my chance. And I called every freaking buddy I knew to try to help me out, and nobody could. And I called this girl, and she knows who she is, and she knows how incredibly important this was for me. And she found a way to get out of work, to borrow her friend's car, drove 22 miles, gave me the car, stayed with my car, and said, go make your show, I'll figure this out. And by the time the show started, she had my car towed. It was already at the local station that was working on it. And she found a way to make it to the concert, in which I had her backstage passes waiting for her. And what was amazing about this is she took the backstage passes, of course, but she also purchased a ticket. And she wanted me to see that because she wanted me to know that she's not a prostitute and that she's there because she supports me and she gives of herself because she believes in the band, and that her time that she spends with me is because she chooses to do it, not because she's given items to do it. Now, I was just like, that's cool. How do you not respect that? How do you not respect that? So my issue was never that I thought all these women were terrible people that were, just willing to sleep with anything and everything just to get whatever. I mean, everybody's young. People are young. People have sex. So I always really enjoyed the company and the loyalty and the passion for what we did. And when you're just starting out, especially as a young band, it's not like you have a billion fans. You have a handful. And when people support you, it feels good. And when it's, a beautiful girl that's supporting you, and she's giving of herself because she believes in your career, I just don't know how you could say anything negative about that person. And I was always uncomfortable with that. When I was at shows, playing shows, there was bands that I was friends with, and they would say the nastiest, worst things about these different girls. Oh, she's doing this when the next band comes in and the next band comes in. I remember thinking to myself, well, why is it that if a guy sleeps with 500 women, he's a stud? But if a girl sleeps with 500 men, she's a whore. It doesn't make any sense to me. It didn't make any sense to me back then. Doesn't make any sense to me now. And I remember thinking to myself, well, if she has another band that she does this for when they come in, then good for her. It's not my wife. It's not my girlfriend. It's just somebody who supports what's going on. And I'm cool with that. I was looking to play a show and try to get to the next city. And so many bands that have been through that have talked about that support and what that support means. And it's a very, very, very serious deal. Like when you're on the road and collectively you literally are counting up your money and you've got like $7.42 and 90 miles to go before you get to the venue and you haven't eaten since yesterday morning. Trust me when I tell you, a hot meal, a warm bed, a place to shower, like those things are so important, And then, like I said, at the same time, I can't get, or can't be negative because these women are fascinated by what you do. Because I think in a weird way, the groupie mindset, oddly enough, it's very similar to the mindset of an artist in the sense that I think most artists have a skewed, messed up view of love and relationships, and they're kind of screwed up in the head about it. It takes them a long time to figure it out, and they want attention, and they mistake attention for love because it feels like it for a brief time period, Positivity and attention and even sexuality, for a brief time period, it feels like love. Even though it's not true love, it feels like it. So it almost becomes like a drug. And I understood that. And I always wanted to know more about them and who they were. And like I said, these became friendships. And then after a while, you've got like 10 different cities that you can go to that no matter what, there's a home base for you. And there's going to be somebody there to make sure that you have the best show you can have. And that was just worth its weight in gold. And because a lot of times, because of the sexual relationship, that is wide open and everything's on the table, there's no BS, there's no anything, you start that relationship out on a very, very honest footing. So you always feel like you can be extremely honest around this person. Now, honesty was never something that I really struggled with, but what I'm saying is I felt like that I never had to hide any emotion or had, or anything like that when I was around, these women, these friends. I view them as friends. You could tell as I'm talking here, you could tell I hate the term groupie. I hate saying it because Hollywood has given it such negative connotations. I don't like saying the word groupie because I don't feel negative about any of these women. And I think they got a really raw fucking deal from Hollywood and a lot of filmmakers that have, turned them into something that they're not, something, that's, gross or, or disturbing. When, like I said, when guys are socially rewarded for sleeping with as many women as they can, in a short time period, especially if you're a young man. I mean, geez, it's like nobody ever condemns what men do. I mean, Laura and I were just talking about the whole R. Kelly thing, and it just dawned on me that when I was 13 years old, I dated two seniors that were both 18. One was for an 8-month time period, and one was for a 3-month time period. And everybody knew, according to the law, that was rape. I was 13 and they were 18. And everybody knew. It's not like we were sneaking around. These girls were my girlfriend. And I never even thought about that. I was like, Jesus, I never thought about that. Technically speaking, that was rape. Now, listen, I don't think I was raped in any capacity. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was a very mature, physically 13-year-old. But nonetheless, if I flip it around right now, if I had a 13-year-old son, would I want him sleeping with an 18-year-old? Or even worse, if I had a 13-year-old daughter, would I allow an 18-year-old man anywhere near her? No flipping way. But that just shows you the difference in how society views this. At 13 years old, everybody in my community, from teachers to principals to everybody, knew that I was dating an 18-year-old. So if they didn't know that we were having sex, they definitely knew that we were doing something, and anything was illegal. But because I was a dude, it was like, yeah, that's right. You're the man. 13 years old, you're getting it. You know what I mean? It was just so messed up when I think about it. And that's when I look back and the same thing about a groupie. Like, say I went to a Rihanna concert tomorrow. Saw her, she was amazing, and somehow I wound up on her bus having sex with her. If I hopped off that bus, every friend I have would be like, dude, you had sex with Rihanna? High fives. No, not now because I'm married, but if I was single. You know, every friend I have would be like, dude, you killed it. You got Rihanna? Oh my God. But yet if a girl does it, if a girl shows up to a show and she's blown away by the sexuality of what's going on, and she has sex with that person, she's just a groupie. Do you guys hear the difference? Do you follow me on this? Or am I crazy here? This is wrong. It's just totally wrong that, you know, women are given this title groupies, when I can honestly tell you, not only my band, and not only Motley Crue, but millions of bands were able to get their start because of the support of groupies. One of the hardest things to do when you're in a band is to keep a job. That's one of the hardest things to do because you got to practice, you got to play shows on weekends, sometimes weekdays. It's so impossible to hold a schedule. So at some point, you got to try to make the jump from working part-time jobs here and there to making enough money as a band to support your lifestyle so you can just do music. And there's a gray area there that's really hard to traverse. And how most people traverse that gray area is through the support of groupies. All I can tell you this is, when you're starving at the end of the night, it's awesome to know that whatever, you know, sexual fantasy you want to do is waiting for you. But you know what's even better? Knowing you got a warm meal waiting for you. Knowing you got a hot shower. Knowing that you don't got to worry about sleeping in a car and getting mugged or shot or anything else, you know, overnight. I mean, I just think there's something to be said for that. And I've only seen one film portrayed accurately. Like I said, that's Almost Famous. I love the honesty between Kate Hudson's character and Billy Crudup's character. There's just an honesty about their life that they share in these moments. And I love how Kate Hudson knows that it's not eternal. It's not going to last forever. It's going to have its time period. And she's realistic about it. And there's an honest kind of give and take. And Billy Crudup has his wife and his other life, and he doesn't ever want that thing to end on one hand, but at the same time, he's also not going to leave his wife for her either. You know? So there's just this acknowledgement that Kate Hudson's character is more than just some, quote, piece of ass. And there's an acknowledgement that she's very, very important to him feeling comfortable in his own skin. And he looks forward to seeing her every time he comes to town. And she has her friends who are also, quote, groupies that also take care of different band members and do different things for them, whether it's sewing or getting them food or, you know, or just helping them out, you know, moving things. Like, there's just so many things that you need help with when you're a young band. Now, even in Almost Famous, when the movie starts, they're the younger band. They're the band that hasn't made it yet. Stillwater's almost made it. That's why it's Almost Famous, right? They're the opening act. And I'm glad that there was finally a movie that said, wait a minute. A lot of these rock acts wouldn't have survived had they not been there to support them. So when it comes to the questions of, you know, do I have any stories like The Dirt? I have plenty. I'm sure every rock band does. Every rock band that has any kind of, like I said, regional success, national success, even local success, yeah, you're going to have crazy stories. Especially if you're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, when that success happens. Because at that point, you don't really have any responsibilities. You haven't really lost yet in life. Most men are still just being horrible cheating assholes at that time in their life anyways. So yeah, of course there's all kinds of crazy stories like that. And, one day in a book, I'm sure several of them will come out. But, like I said, I don't think this is the place for me to talk about, sexual stuff of me personally. But my favorite movie of all time, is Almost Famous for that reason. That I just think women get a bum rap in general when it comes to the whole groupie thing. Because I could also tell you this, and I mean this, and I always wondered this. My old band opened up for 2 female bands. One was called Drain, STH, who were from Sweden, and I loved them. They're just a Swedish metal band that was dope. And my God, was the singer beautiful. I mean, just smoke show. So hot. We're talking 11 out of 10, I mean, she was just beautiful. And then we also opened up for the band Veruca Salt. And Veruca Salt is 2 very attractive women as well. And they're a rock band as well, too. And I always wondered if women did the same thing as rock bands, male-fronted rock bands. Do they have groupies? Do they have, at the end of the night, are they looking for somebody too? And I can tell you without question, absolutely. And these women had a lot of fun. And they took their pick of whatever they wanted. And I talked to one of the road managers. He's like, oh yeah. He was like, trust me, man. He was like, there isn't any difference between male or female. And I thought that was cool. I was like, well, good, man. I'm glad they don't give a shit and they're getting their own, And keep in mind, too, this is all a very different time in my life. I mean, this is when I was a young man that was trying to really figure out who he was in this world of the entertainment business and what I wanted out of it. And when you're that young, you just want immediate gratification. Whatever's quick, that's what you want. And so it was just a different time in my life. But I'm glad I got to experience all that stuff, and it's all it's all chapters in the book that'll be written one day. So to those that asked about the stories of my dirt, hopefully that's enough to satisfy. And to those who asked which is my favorite movie of all time, it's Almost Famous, and I just told you the reasons why, I guess. So yeah, if you get a chance to watch Almost Famous, it is just beautiful. Cameron Crowe directed and written, who I think is a stunning director. And there are some really, really powerful, tear-jerking moments in Almost Famous that are just classic American cinema. So, also, just an update for everybody. I got 2 more demonetization notices. Oddly enough, for the Billionaire Who Only Ate Fries Part 1 and Part 2 podcast. Now, why they would demonetize those, I have no idea. They have both been submitted for manual review, so we'll see what they say. But this is just freaky as can be. But I will let you guys know what is said, what they do. And in the meantime, thank you guys so much for all your feedback on yesterday's podcast about the YouTube conspiracy. It's awesome to see you guys respond with that much passion. There's so much information you guys gave me that was awesome, and so much stuff that I read. I still think something very bizarre is going on. I don't get it. It just all seems like a crackdown on free speech to me, and I don't like it, and it does freak me out. So I'm going to keep doing my thing, and we'll just see what happens. Thank you guys for smashing the like button. That's the best thing you can do right now to just help and support me, is like, leave a comment, and share the podcast with others. As always, if you want to help me directly with the financial contribution, the tab is right there. And some of you have. So thank you very much for that. I really, really appreciate it. The more I can establish that, the less I have to care about advertisers and sponsors. And we can get into the real nuts and bolts and details of everything and not have to worry about them reviewing my work and telling me what I can and can't say. So, as always, thank you guys very much for listening to the In a Crowded Room podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.